So we're Chartered Accountants Australia, New Zealand. We're the professional body for accounting and finance in New Zealand and Australia. Every year we do what we call a remuneration survey, which looks to benchmark remuneration across our membership and across the industries that our members work in. The 2021 remuneration survey that we ran highlighted in New Zealand a $60,000 annual median gap between men and women. And this is an entrenched gap within our profession and like other professions and industries. So we really wanted to shine a spotlight on that gap so that collectively the professions can start to create some change, where our tagline around this is sunlight is the best disinfectant. So we've been pretty brave and courageous around how we've talked about the gap and how that is a real challenge for our profession, which created some really interesting discussions and some difficult conversations amongst our profession. We're seeing more women than men come into our profession. The way that the profession is positioned and the brand around being a chartered accountant and working in the chartered accounting profession needs to be attractive for everyone. If we have entrenched pay gaps within our profession, I think there's a risk that women start to say, look, this isn't the profession or industry for me because my work isn't valued. So being transparent to say, look, we do have a problem, but we are going to lean into that. Women thinking about coming into accountant will see that and go, yeah, okay, well, I can see that they're facing into that challenge and they're doing something about it. And I think that from our perspective, that's good leadership. We have really solid data, not just about pay gaps, but some of the other challenges the profession's facing into around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we are just right in the process at the moment around developing a profession-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, of which pay gap remediation will form a really important pillar of that. And our first action around pay gap is that playbook. So we wanted to turn the conversation from just raising awareness of the pay gap and talking about it to creating something practical that organizations and leaders can take forward within their organizations in a simple and accessible and digestible way, understanding that organization-wide pay gaps are hard to create change in. There are simple steps that you can take within your organization from a policy and a procedure and a culture perspective to really create change. That playbook sought to provide a digestible resource to provide education and an action plan for organizations to take forward. Because one of our really critical observations in this is about the misunderstanding around what an organization or a profession-wide gender pay gap is, the organizational profession-wide pay gap, which takes into account all roles within an organization and the median point between men and women. And one of the bigger drivers of that is the overrepresentation of men in the senior, more highly paid roles and industries. And so that's something that we can create change on as well. So we're in this environment, and not just in our industry, but in lots of industries and professions where there is a real talent challenge. There's a war for talent. The talent coming through are looking for transparent, inclusive, authentic leadership in terms of the brands and the organizations that they want to work for. And so I think that this is an opportunity for organizations to set themselves apart. And my advice is be transparent around your pay gap, whatever it is. Because it's not actually the gap percentage that people will be looking for. It'll be what you're going to do about it, what your action plan is. So CA ANZ's pay gap is 16%, and we're reporting that publicly. Alongside that, we're saying these are all of the actions that we're going to take over the next few years to try and reduce that gap. Normal human reaction to that is, good on them for being honest, being transparent. And I actually like some of those initiatives that they're taking. So my advice is, report, and people will be looking for that transparency and great leadership around what you're going to do about it. They'll be more focused on that than the gap percentage, if you like. It does take a bit of vulnerability for an organization to publicly report their gap. But my observation of that is that people connect with that. They say, okay, good on them for doing that. That's taken some courage. They're leaning into it, and they're actually putting some effort and some energy into how that might close the gap.